So if you're an artist like I am, then you've really struggled with capitalism and like money stuff. Yo, let me make sure the framing is right. Okay, cool. I wish as an artist and spiritual person, someone told me about what I'm about to share with you. A lot of times I've just felt like there's not enough to go around. I have to work my butt off, or I have to do things I don't want for money, which sometimes is true. Ultimately, I realized that money is just a mirror of our internal life. So if you have lack within you, you never have enough money. And if you have everything within you and you don't need anything outside of yourself, you probably don't need more money. Now, I know there's the practical considerations of like you need money for basic survival. You know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, shelter, water. I get it. But if you're in a first world country and you're not in a war zone and you'll probably be alive tomorrow, I think some of what I have to share with you could be helpful, especially if you're spiritual and an artist like myself. So I was in a taxi in Washington, D.C., and separate context, my parents have been asking me like when I'm going to get married because I'm 33 and apparently that's an age where you're supposed to get married. So I asked my taxi driver, this Uber driver, it's like, hey, like, you know, you're an older guy, you know, he looked like 50, 60. And I was like, got any advice or insights about marriage? And he starts like going in, like he's talking about the women he's met and he got a divorce. And I asked him, oh, you know, it seems like it's kind of hard to find a good woman, huh? And this is what he says next. He said, yo, man, out of 100 women, only one is good. You know, my parents tell me, Ian, it's not easy to find a person who really is healthy and can make a marriage work, you know, without a problem. I haven't been married, so I don't know if that's true or not. But based on what I'm hearing, I think the same kind of applies to business. Most of us have encountered business as an arena where either we've been used or we've used other people. We don't get paid enough. There's toxic, bad business practices. Everyone's out to get their own. It's kind of like a dog-eat-dog world. And especially as an artist, I found myself developing a lot of resentment for the capitalist system because it's like capitalism doesn't seem to value art very much, or true meaning, or depth, or faith. These things are not easily monetizable. Even on YouTube, you know, when you put advertisements on your videos, the ones with the highest AdSense are always the ones about money, finance, business. If you talk about like philosophy or religion or spirituality, your AdSense is going to be really low. If you've been alive as long as I have, which is not that long, but you know, even if you're younger, like in your 20s or teens, and you've been in the real world, you've realized that 90% of the time, it's not easy to monetize art and spirituality or like meaningful things. But that's why you have to find that other 10% of businesses, collaborators, friends. Now, let me distinguish here that I'm not saying that only 10% of people will be interested in your art. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you have to find the 10% of true homies that will like support your work, act in integrity, not use you, collaborators who really want to help you. And you also have to be that kind of person so that people can rely on you and trust you for the work that you're doing. So, okay, I know I'm being a little confusing, but let me tell you another story, okay? So I'm going to tell you about my friend Jimmy, who was a dear mentor to me a couple years back, maybe like 5 years ago. We used to get breakfast every 2 weeks. We'd go to Larchmont in LA, to Corner Bakery Cafe or something like that. And he would just pour into me. He's a fellow Asian American guy, really good at business, but he saw something in me where he was willing to take me out to breakfast every week and really pour into me as a fellow human in a way that I felt cared for and seen and understood. And we did that for maybe a little over a year, every week. One day, I go to the bakery at our regular time to get together, and Jimmy's not there. And the first thought I had to myself, it's not that he stood me up, because I know he's a really reliable guy. I found out a couple days later he had a stroke. So I went to see him at the hospital. But before I went to see him at the hospital, I remember how much Jimmy likes Korean barbecue and Korean food. So I bought the biggest Korean barbecue to go like feast, way more than what one person could eat. Like, and I was not rich at the time, let me tell you. I'm like a struggling artist in LA. And I remember this meal, this feast, cost like $120, $130. Like, I can't afford that as a struggling artist in LA, but I did it anyways. You know why? Because I love Jimmy, because I trust him, because he poured into me, and I brought that meal to Jimmy, and I was so happy to give that meal to Jimmy because I know how much he likes this food. Jimmy, if you're watching this, I love you, man. And thank you for all the times you poured into me and for the friendship and the love. Now, I want you to compare Jimmy, or my relationship with Jimmy, with what if Jimmy was like a terrible boss? Like, what if he was a colleague at your workplace where he always treated you badly, spoke behind your back, gossiped, constantly berated you? Imagine if this boss person was just extremely toxic and then one day had a stroke. Would you go out of your way to buy a large Korean barbecue feast for this bad boss, this toxic person? You would not go out of your way to do that for someone that you don't like, that you don't trust. So herein lies a very important point. You have to understand, and I'm coming to understand, the difference between power and force. When we come from a toxic place of needing something, of using people, of extracting value from souls instead of pouring into them, instead of giving to them, we're not gonna get work. People aren't gonna trust us. Now, going back to my 90%, 90% of people, and the vast majority of our capitalist world, is toxic, unfortunately. People don't know better than to gouge you for money, to get ahead. That's why there's such this huge culture of like quiet quitting, or like, you know, people want to stay home. They don't want to go into the office and they don't like being with their colleagues. But imagine if your workplace was surrounded by amazing people like Jimmy. You would love going to work. You would buy everyone Korean feasts all the time. You get what I'm saying? Power versus force. When you approach money with the concept of power, of genuinely wanting to help other people, of pouring into people, of being generous with how much you pay people, or you're generous with how much you give them, you end up earning more money. Think about collaborators, clients. You know, there's some collaborators that always want to do a minimum job and get away with as little work as possible and take home maximum pay. And then on the other hand, there's some collaborators who really go out of their way to make sure you have everything you need. Which collaborator are you going to hire again? Which person do you trust more? Which person would you more likely buy a giant Korean feast? You want to operate from a place of love and contribution. And you want to find not the 90% of people who do business in a toxic way, who have a toxic relationship with money, but you want to find the 10%, the minority, or as my Uber driver said, the 1 in 100 people that actually treat money and work with respect, and you with respect. I'm going to tell you another story. I read this article a couple months ago about this granddaughter of Jewish Holocaust survivors. And this granddaughter, you know, she's like a professor now. I think she's in her 40s or something. But she said that one of the most important lessons she learned from her grandparents was to surround yourself with like true people. If you ask the question in your head, would they hide me? They would actually hide you. Her grandparents were Jewish in World War II. And it was a life or death situation where they had to look around and actually ask themselves and of their neighbors, would this person hide me or not? This was kind of in my mind as one day I was just like scrolling through my contacts on my iPhone. And I had a revelation. I started asking myself, looking through my contacts on my iPhone, would this person hide me? Like, would this person hide me? And it was so surprising because a lot of people that I thought were friends, I thought about the question, would they hide me? And for some people, it was a clear no. But for some reason, I kept hanging around them, like people who use me or people who take advantage of me. And then there were some people who I hadn't even known that long, or maybe I just met them once or like last week. But when I thought about the question, like, would they hide me? It was instantly a yes. It's so funny because there's like friends I've known for like a decade or more that I know would not hide me. And there's other friends that I haven't known at all and I don't know them very well, but I know for sure that they would have my back if something happened. But the more important question is whether I am like that. Would I hide other people? Would I go out of my way to be of support if someone is encountering the worst time of their life? Or if something disastrous happens to them, would I be there to support them? That's the thing that got to me. Like, if I want to be a really abundant person and taking it back to money, and I want to make some good money in an integrous way, I have to ask myself, am I really a person with that character that really wants to genuinely, sincerely help people versus just accomplishing my own goals? I realized looking back at my own life, there's so many times, pursuing my own artistic dream or ambitions that I just wanted to get to where I wanted to get to. And as a result, there's a lot of times I use people. I hired them as a means for my own personal ambition versus I could have hired them to help them out in where they are in their career to give them a boost towards where they want to go because we can all lift each other up together. So this leads me to the importance of that 10%, let's put a word to it. That 10% that you want to work with, the non-toxic, the integrous individuals, homies. You want to work with homies. You want to be a homie, you want to work with homies. What is a homie? A homie would hide you. A homie on hard times, you can lean on them and you can trust them. More importantly, you have to be a homie. You have to be a homie. Because if you're not a homie, you're not going to find other homies. Imagine if you approach other homies who are dope, but you're just trying to take from them all the time. What are they going to do? Are they going to work with you, collaborate with you? Probably not. You got to know how to be a good person, sincerely. And you also have to know how to value other good people and hold on to them. People don't know how to value good people. 90% of people who have an unhealthy relationship with their own heart, because they're hurting on the inside, they hurt others outside of themselves. You have to do the inner work. You have to do the inner work. And after you do the inner work and you realize that you don't need anything from other people, that you're good, there's nothing else to do except to just help out and be helpful, right? At that point, you've realized and matured beyond self-interest to collective interest. You don't need anything yourself. You're dedicated to something beyond you as an individual. Selfish versus selfless. Like you're transitioning from selfish to selfless, right? A bigger life, a more expansive life, a connected life. So I want to talk about some other language of how to reframe money. I once heard Rupert Spira, one of my favorite non-dual spiritual teachers. He framed money as a form of love. When you receive money, you're receiving love. When you're giving money, you're giving love. I've also heard of money framed as a unit of energy, a store of wealth, and maybe even attention. But I like energy, money as a resource, it's neutral. It's not good or bad. You can use a lot of money for bad things or you can use a lot of money for good things, right? But we all have energy within ourselves. We all have energy. One way of labeling energy is money when it's in the form of dollars. But let's just think about when we are thinking about our framing with money and we think of it as a resource, as energy, and we have energy within ourselves, that means we have to have our inner selves coherent and organized so that we are abundant in energy, right? So do we lack our own energy that we always have to grab energy from others? Are we trying to grab things or are we trying to give because we have abundance. You know, if we go with Rupert Spear's language, grabbingness is always trying to get people to love you, right? It's always trying to get their resources or get their attention. But what if you have inner peace and wholeness inside? Then you come from an abundance mindset, right? You're giving love, you're giving energy, you're giving attention to other people because you know you're not losing anything when you give. When you're truly at peace with who you are, you realize no matter how much you give, you don't lose anything. You have infinite energy. So I want to also reframe this other phrase that I think is tossed around a lot. And that phrase is abundance mindset. I always thought that abundance mindset is like, you can get more, you know? Like you can have infinite amount of stuff and it's always endless. But my friend, shout out to George Wang. George, if you're watching this, thanks for sharing this with me. He reframed the phrase abundance mindset so beautifully. And this is what he said. Abundance mindset is learning how to be joyful with little. You don't need the entire world to be happy. You are completely content with not that much because you have everything you need within you. You don't need anything else outside. That was a really useful reframing for me because before, when I thought about abundance mindset, I was like, man, why am I not abundant? Like, how can I figure out how to get more? But it's not about figuring out how to get more. It's realizing that all that more that you were looking for on the outside, it is already inside of us. It's already inside of you. You are enough. I'm enough. We don't need anything. We don't need to grab anything. We don't need more love, energy, and attention from other people. We can generate that from within. We can generate that energy from within ourselves. So this directly relates to money and capitalism because, you know, people feel your vibe. People feel your energy. People feel the status of your vibration within. When people are being salesy and you can feel them grabbing you. You can feel them trying to manipulate you to so they can make money, right? But if someone's genuinely wanting to be of help, you feel their authenticity and sincerity. You don't feel icky, right? Authentic, good businessmen and salespeople and people like homies in that 10%, you want to do business with them because you trust them and you sense their vibe. So in your case, in my case, I'll just speak for myself, it is important that I clean up my own vibe. The most important thing is that I have 100% ownership over my internal world. Like I'm not letting anything outside of myself touch the inner joy and abundance that I have. I saw this clip about Howard Thurman, who was a civil rights leader and a mentor to Martin Luther King Jr. And he had some quote that I'm going to butcher. He talks about everyone having an inner altar. Everybody has an altar within themselves that nobody or nothing outside can touch, and you have to protect that altar and keep it clean. Always keep it clean. And when you have that amount of control over your inner state, regardless of what's happening around you, what the world is like, that is true abundance. You know your own divinity, your worth, your value, right? So that brings us to, what does it truly mean to be rich? To be wealthy? If we go by the world standards, it's talking about you need a lot of love and attention and fame and adoration and admiration from a lot of other people. You need all those outside things. You need a lot of money. But if we're talking about true wealth, inner wealth, protecting the altar, I think it means that you have a deep peace, content, and joy in life without anything outside of you needing to be different, right? You're at peace no matter what happens. And you have a robust fortress around that peace. And people gravitate to you because you're an anchor that helps them anchor in their own peace. You sincerely want to help. Because what else is there to do? If you're at peace and whole within yourself, you don't need anything from others. So I might as well be helpful. I might as well offer what I can. And as a result, make some money. Money, I think when we have our inner world all organized and coherent, Money's just the cherry on top. It's a symptom of the inner joy we have cultivated within ourselves. So may we embark on this amazing journey of finding peace within ourselves so that we can gift that peace to others. May we be surrounded by a bunch of homies to be a homie. And I guess that's it for now. Yeah. If you like that, I have a little free course for you. Whether you're a speaker, filmmaker, teacher, or anyone who crafts any kinds of stories, I have a free storytelling course for you. It's called How to Craft Mind-Blowing Stories, 20 Years of Storytelling Insights in 1 hour. Check it out in the description box. Also, I don't think people really realize this, but I'm quite accessible and I love connecting with people. So reach out to me. I'm always down to be of support however I can for my fellow spiritual people, artist people, storyteller people, spiritual artist warrior types. So yeah, reach out. Would love to connect. And wherever you are, wishing you a very good day, and I'll talk to you soon.